Right now, I want to bring in MS Now's Jake Traylor, who is at the White House. Also with us, former Undersecretary of the Army and former Democratic Congressman Patrick Murphy, and retired Navy Vice Admiral and former Bush National Security Council staffer Robert Harward. So, Jake, President Trump finally got his coveted Nobel Peace Prize, kinda, sorta. Is he satisfied? Does this fundamentally change his relationship now with Machado and her opposition movement?
Yeah, I mean, look, Machado certainly hopes that that is the case. That was clearly her intention of being here, gifting the president with the physical prize itself. But I feel like worth noting here is that it's not necessarily that Machado and Trump didn't have a solid relationship going into this meeting. Machado has aligned herself with President Trump really for years. Whenever it was first announced that she would receive the Nobel Prize, she essentially from the start dedicated it to President Trump. It's worth instead really noting and focusing, I think, on how the White House and Trump himself continue in further relationship with who's actively currently in charge in Venezuela, which is the interim President Rodriguez, who was a part of the Maduro regime as well. Because there's been some really illuminating reporting on this in the past couple of days that essentially says that the White House and Trump specifically believe that it's through Rodriguez that they are able to most likely capitalize on all the opportunity and potential for U.S. oil seizing in Venezuela. So that's kind of a really key component there. It's not necessarily the Machado-Trump relationship, but the relationship with Rodriguez and how that progresses. Certainly when it comes to Machado and her meeting yesterday, her attempt there was to convince the president that Rodriguez was not the future of Venezuela, that instead it's her and her opposition party. She made the comparison, though, of the gifting of the Nobel Prize to Trump to a centuries-old similar gifting. She spoke about that yesterday. Take a brief listen.
200 years ago, General Lafayette gave Simon Bolivar a medal with George Washington's face on it as a sign of the brotherhood between the United States, the people of the United States and the people of Venezuela in their fight for freedom against tyranny. And 200 years in history, the people of Bolivar are giving back to the heir of Washington a medal.
Anna, it's worth noting the Nobel Prize committee put out a statement yesterday saying that Machado was the recipient of the prize. She can pass the physical medal along as much as she wants, but there's only one single recipient. That's Machado, not President Trump.
So the same day, President Trump met with Machado, the CIA director met with the newly installed interim president. So I wonder, Secretary, why the CIA director is the one and not, say, Secretary Rubio? Does this make sense to you?
Well, listen, I think what you're seeing here is it's not actually regime change when you put the vice president back in. And I will say historically, the Admiral and I, we both served in Iraq. It's a lessons learned from Iraq. In Iraq, when we invaded, I was part of the invasion force, we then fired the Ba'athist Party, right? And then they became insurgents. So what happened here when we took out Maduro, we installed his vice president. President Trump wasn't that gracious to Ms. Machado at first, but now obviously, after yesterday, we'll see. But what I think is going to happen now, we're talking about 18, 24 months. Will there be another election? Will be there a potential other transition of power? But for the meantime, the Maduro administration continues, even though he's now in jail.
Admiral, what message does this Ratcliffe meeting send to the opposition? Is this standard post-regime diplomacy?
Well, I think it shows a commitment from not only the U.S., but all our allies and like-minded friends who want this change. We know it's going to take a long time. It's going to be ugly, but it's got to happen. This administration is going after governments who have failed their people, oppressed their people, and presented threats to us and our allies, much less responsible for killing Americans. So I think, and accordingly so, they're approaching soft power first to do it from within, from the bottom up, support them, so that the people bring this to fruition. In this case, I think that's what's happening here.
Well, I guess I wonder, though, if the people are getting what they want, if the U.S. administration is propping up or supporting members of the Maduro regime. Even though he's gone, Delcy Rodriguez was part of his regime. Jake,
Yeah.
I do want to pivot to other news so we can hit everybody on Iran as well, because there are new sanctions that the U.S. has put in place here, and you have new details about why President Trump apparently backed off some of the plans to potentially strike Iran with a military action of some sort earlier this week.
Yeah, Anna, look, it's quite the reversal because, I mean, just look over the past week or so of what the president's words have been towards Iran. When he talked about on Truth Social saying that if there's a single protester killed, that the U.S. would swiftly get involved. Also saying a couple of days ago that help is on the way. Now seemingly pulling back on that and instead imposing these economic sanctions on a couple dozen entities and individuals in Iran. I think there's a couple important things to look at here, Anna. First is ultimately why the president is saying he pulled back on this. The president said that he had on good authority that killing had stopped in Iran. There was no real U.S. intel indicating that was the case. The death toll apparently is up to near 2,600 individuals in the region now, which is just a staggering number to think about. But then there's also what we have been reporting out behind the scenes, which is that the president received from U.S. officials word that if there was a strike on Iran right now from the United States, that there's not necessarily enough military capacity in the region, one, to topple the regime, but also two, to be in defense of some of these army bases if Iran decided to retaliate against the United States. We did have Caroline Leavitt yesterday in a press briefing speaking about it. She said ultimately, as Trump often does, that all options are seemingly on the table, but it's very clearly a shift from the president here.
Admiral, the fact that these Arab states and Israel all were against a U.S. attack, what does that tell you? What does it perhaps say about the Iranian threat?
Well, first off, they all want to avoid bloodshed. No one wants to be responsible for thousands of Iranians being killed or detained. So I think everyone prefers the soft power approach. And I think that's what's going on now. Can you increase the communications? Can you get them assets? Can you present cyber activities? Other things that can continue to push the regime of Iran out. So I think it's inevitable. It's just what approach you could do. And as we've seen in its history, when you galvanize enough people, it becomes inevitable. And how do you do that with this little bloodshed? So I think that's what's going on right now. And I think this thing's going to go on for quite a while.
Secretary Murphy, how do you see it? Are more sanctions the answer?
I don't think so at this point. I mean, we'll see how it plays out. I kind of agree with the Admiral, Anna, to be honest with you. I mean, this is the deadliest protest since the 1979 coup under Khamenei's rule. So when you look at 156 protests across those 27 provinces, we are providing that soft power support. When you look at Starlink and some other things, so we can communicate while their internet and telecom has been shut down to mute the protest. But Anna, what I see from the Iranian regime, though, they activated obviously the Iranian Guard, and they only do that not for civil unrest. They do that when there's really an insurgency. So we'll see how that plays out. Maybe there's applause, maybe not. It's really hard to obviously have eyes on the ground when they shut out the telecom and satellites. But right. With some other assets were helping the people there. We'll see how it plays out. But I think America at our best, Anna, is a reluctant warrior.